Survivors, seekers, and thrivers, welcome to Transcending Trauma, a spiritual odyssey. I'm Shari Lee Roberts, living proof that transformation is real. Get ready for powerful insights, inspiring stories, and a little laughter along the way.
I know from my own experiences that the journey you took, your childhood must have been pretty awful. Can you start there?
Yes, I'd love to start there. So basically, I was raised with alcoholic parents. I had parents that made me feel like I was just not enough. I was not pretty enough. I was not smart enough. I was not skinny enough. Everything, And sometimes parents, they don't say that you're not enough, but their actions can show it. And so I was raised with a bully for a brother. And then they would go out and they would be drinking. And then that left me with abandonment issues, trust issues, so forth. And then in kindergarten, when that's supposed to be your most independent day of your life, I had a little boy named Jim Brocky that came up to me 5 minutes after I said goodbye to my mom. I was in this cute little dress. My hair looked really pretty. And then he came up and he said 3 things to me that held me hostage for many, many years. 1, why does your hair look like it's been put in a light socket? 2, why does your clothes look like it came out of a dumpster? And 3, why are you so ugly? And believe it or not, that haunted me through my childhood. It haunted me through my junior high school days, my high school days, up until the time I was 30. And then I went on a spiritual discovery to find out who I was, because people kept telling me that, you're going to make a great leader someday, or in my church, and, oh, I love your dress, or I love your hair. And I'd just be spitting these compliments right back in their face. And so that's what happened in my childhood. But I also had grandmas that made me feel less than enough, because they were like, why can't you be like your cousins? Or why can't you be like so-and-so? And those were really hurtful times. And so I grew up very shy, introverted. And then through all that, I became a ice skater and a dancer when I was 5 years old. And I was very popular during those times. It was just at school that really was the challenge for me, because this guy was following me around every home room, because we both had the last name spelled with a B. And it was torture, complete torture.
Okay, so I get you, and everything you said. I have an older sister who was more beautiful, smarter, according to everyone. So it was, oh my God, I am not her. I can't measure up. I got it. Keep going.
Wow. It is rough when we have siblings that don't know how to treat us right.
Yeah. Keep going with your story.
Okay. Thank you. When I was 27 years old, I thought I met the man of my dreams. He whisked me off my feet. He bought me presents. We were blissfully in love, and we were very compatible. And I thought that was going to be my soulmate. And when I was I was up at his parents' house, and he was out fishing, and then his mom got a phone call, and we were going through baby pictures, and I was like, oh my gosh, oh, he's so cute. Oh, that's my husband. He's so cute. And so so basically when his mom got a phone call, so I was by myself going through these. And then what happened was I ran into a document underneath all the baby pictures and stuff. And it read my ex-husband's name versus the state of Indiana penitentiary. And that definitely got my attention. Yes. And so
Wait, hold on. You were what age? And were you married at that time?
yes, we were married for 3 months. 3 months.
Yeah.
And so I read this document, and it said my ex-husband's name versus the state of Indiana penitentiary in lieu of he killed a man, hit him over the head with a lead pipe, dragged him in the woods to die, and he was 66 years old. And see, my ex-husband told me that he had been in the Marine Corps for 9 years before we met. But then that day, I found out that he had been lying to me. He had actually been in prison for those 9 years. So your world just shatters like glass. All of a sudden I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I am married to a murderer. And so I got my purse. I ran out of the house. He had my car keys, so I walked on foot. I went to a restaurant, told the restaurant manager, you need to hide me. He knew who we were because we visit the restaurant frequently. Yeah. And so I called my mom and dad, and I said, listen, you need to come and get me. Don't ask any questions at this time. So they came and got me, took me back to their house. About an hour later, here comes my ex-husband. He walks towards the front door, and my dad walked out with a shotgun and said, you're not taking my daughter anywhere. Well, what happened is that he said, well, listen, if she doesn't come back with me right now, then I'm going to go home and kill her precious cat. And then I'm going to come back for you, old man. So I ended up having to go back with him that day in the car. And it was living hell. And because his secret was out, now he flipped a switch. And so we got into the house, and that's when he started abusing me, hitting me in the face, trying to break my bones, and so forth. So what happened is that he stayed in the house, but he'd go out and have affairs and then come home to tell me about it. And it was torture. Sherry, I was held hostage in my house. And
For how long? And why didn't your family help you? I'm not getting it.
okay, well, my family didn't help me because, they did. They were very much supportive to me. But that he told my family, if you get in the way of anything through this divorce, I'm going to kill you. So I told my mom and dad to step back. Don't interfere with anything right now until I'm ready to make my escape. And so when I was working, I would go to their house. And so I was able to see them at that time, or we would meet someplace, but they were not allowed to come to my house whatsoever. And basically during that time, I became a full-fledged alcoholic because I needed something to cope. My nerves were just shot. And I didn't know if I was going to wake up dead or alive because he was in there, And so basically what happened is that I started doing drugs. I started dealing in drugs on the streets. And because I needed money because he was holding my money hostage. I was a waitress. And so he would come pick me up and be like, I need my money. I need my money. And so basically then what I did is I dug a hole in the backyard and I put my money in there. So he did not have all my money. So I had the money being saved for my escape. So what happened is that during that time, I also, went out and I found a bar close to our house and I went and I started hustling people for money. And I started being a pool player at age 5. And I was really good at it then. I'm not that good now. And so what happened is that I would walk in and people would be like, well, I'm here to play Terry Bracken. And I go, well, that's me. And see, the guys thought I was the guy that I played, they thought I was the guy. But when they found out I was a woman, they were like, oh, this is going to be a piece of cake. Well, no, it wasn't. And they would walk out $2,000 poor. So I was able to save that money. Yeah, I know. It was so funny that I go, you want to play it again? They're like, no. And so what happened is 2 days after, the divorce was coming up, and my ex-husband called me and said, if you come down to the courtroom to contest this divorce, when I don't love you, I don't like you, I hate you, then I am going to come back and I'm going to burn this house down and I'm coming after all your family. And so I didn't go down there, obviously, but I was definitely strung out on all kinds of things. And so he came to my house 20 minutes after he signed the papers, walks through my door. I thought the door was locked. And he come in and he says, I wish I didn't do what I just did. And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. He says, divorcing you because you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Let's get married again. I said, you've got 10 seconds to get out of my house before I call the police. Yeah. Okay? Because I had a restraining order on him. It didn't help. But legally, I could have called the police. But he left. And so 2 days after that, I looked in the mirror and I said, Terri, you have got to get your act together here. And so basically, I decided I was going to go to the shopping center that I grew up around. I worked many jobs at, and I was just going to go get some makeup to cover the bruises on my face and to go buy some clothes to make myself feel better. Well, what happened was next, I never made it into the department store. I had a man approach me, and I thought he was going to ask me the time of day. He did not. Instead, he walked me back to my car with a knife to my throat, and he attempted to rape me. However, I lied my way out of this completely. I told him I just escaped out of the mental institution. I did. That's not true. I told him my husband carries a .357 Magnum. That was not true. I told him he worked as security guard. That was not true. But I think I scared the man. So he drove me around the parking lot. And as he was driving, I was trying to get his profile in my head, in my mind, in my brain, and everything else. Excuse me. So he made me do a sexual act on him. Thank God it was not rape. I'm so grateful for that. But he still had the knife to my throat and to my breast. And then the security guard comes by. And I had longer hair, like down to here. So I was motioning in my little curls to get over here, mister. But he drove right by. He drove right by. And I knew my life was at stake. I knew it because there was a woman that was murdered in that same shopping center 3 weeks before me. So I didn't know if I was dealing with that man or not. And so I decided I only had one more option, Sherry, and that was the final option. And so I prayed. And I said, God, I don't know who you are. I don't worship you. I don't go to church. I'm a full-fledged sinner. But if you get me out of this situation alive, I will turn my life over to the end of my days. And within 2 seconds, the knife goes off my throat. He opens my car door and tells me to get out. He says, I got better places to be. And in fact, I got to go across the street and pick up my girlfriend. I was like, okay. So I got out. He drove my car away. I was trying to memorize my license plates, went into the shopping center in the department store, and I was just going to go and call my mom, call my dad, tell him my car's been stolen, come and get me. Well, that didn't happen. I had a complete emotional breakdown inside the shopping center. So that led to 12 police officers trying to get me back to reality with smelling salts. And so what happened was then I went into the interrogation room, and they interrogated me up and down the wall because they needed to find this guy. And, I appreciated that.
Yeah.
The next day, I went with my parents because at that moment in time, I became a introvert to the max. I didn't trust. I was scared to death out of my mind. I would look around the corner at every turn. And so we went down, and I identified the guy in a mugshot. And I sent him to prison for 30 years. Yes, 30 years. I didn't want him to do that to any other person. So my life changed instantly. I became very withdrawn, very, like I said, scared. I moved back with my parents for a little bit. And then what happened was 3 weeks later, it was a beautiful night. I was waitressing at a restaurant, and it was 8:00, and the restaurant closes at 8:30. There was absolutely nobody in there. I was supposed to go to the bar to have it was a pool tournament that night. The guy that was waitressing with me, he was supposed to close me out so I could leave. However, he forgot and he left. And so 8:00, the 500-seat restaurant has no one in there at all. But then at 8:15, here comes 2 women. I call them my angels now because they walked in at the right time. And so my boss said, Terri, you got to take them. We have to keep this restaurant open to 8:30. He says, we'll just get them in and we'll just get them out. And so this woman kept staring at me. And then finally she asked me if my name was Terri Bracken. That was my maiden name. And I said, yes. And she says, well, my name is Cindy Fowl. Do you remember Cindy Fowl from North Central High School? I said, yes, we used to party together and get in crazy trouble together. She says, well, that's me. She said, that's me. I'm Cindy Fowl. I was like, oh my gosh. I looked at her. I thought either she's had a transformation or she's had a complete facelift. It was neither. She had the transformation. So here, being the alcoholic I am, I invite her to go out and have a drink, and she invites me to her boyfriend's Bible talk. And I'm like, drink, Bible talk. What's happening? So she got my number, and then we went and hung out. And then gradually, I started going to her boyfriend's Bible talk. And as of tomorrow, I have been now walking with God for 38 years. And my life changed forever. And that's why I call them my angels.
That is so prophetic and amazing. I'd like to go back a little. So you had a normal childhood. No. Okay. Talk about that.
Well, I'm the coach, right? So I see a lot of clients that has had functional childhoods. Mine was so not functional. Mine was very dysfunctional with the alcohol.
Mine too. Yeah.
Yes.
So you talked about that, but what was it that led you to dealing drugs and all of that? Um, I didn't hear or pick up on that part of your story.
Okay. So you're wanting to know what led me to the drugs and the alcohol.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Go deeper into it because I too had a highly dysfunctional, abusive upbringing and didn't end up dealing drugs and going down your path.
Okay. Well, thank you for clarifying that. One of the things that happened when I was when I was 17, I fell in love with a man, and we would always be going out to the bars. Even me underage, he could get me into the bars and so forth. And I started drinking heavily then because the world was not my friend. It was not my friend. And, with my parents always nagging me and criticizing me and all of this other stuff, the only way I felt like I could cope was definitely to drink. And at that time, I was more of a social drinker. And, I worked. I held a job down and everything. And then when the situation with my ex-husband creeped up, that's when I became a full-fledged alcoholic. But through all this, I started drinking at a very early age. And just life in general wasn't good to me back then. I was bullied a lot and definitely ridiculed by my parents and my grandparents, and just making me feel like I wasn't enough. So the only way I felt like I could cope was to drink, because I was a miserable, miserable person, because I was listening to what people were trying to tell me who I was when I absolutely wasn't. It took me a long time to get me through this journey.
Yeah, it is so profound and key. What you just said, it took you a lot of experiences and enlightenment to realize that the people in your life were holding you back. I got it. So now tell me when and okay, so we know when you realize that it wasn't working. Your life, your community, your people were not working. What did you do?
You're saying when my community wasn't working? Okay. That's where I probably turned to drugs more than anything.
Yeah.
Because I did not know a lot of people since I was being isolated. I was being held hostage. So I didn't really get out as much as I should have, but still I made my escape. And that's when my community blossomed because I had so much support, so much love, you know. That's when my family was actually able to come over and see me because I was in a different location that he did not know about.
How? Yeah. Share that moment when you finally told your family and community you needed help and how you told them.
Well, it was beautiful because, you know, it was like I felt freedom for the very first time in a long time. I felt, wow, you know, he's gone out of my life. I don't have to look at every certain turn. How this all happened was my girlfriend at that time, she moved into a different apartment complex and there was no street signs. It was a brand new complex. So she invited me and my cat to live with her. And so that's when my community started because then my parents could come over and love up on me and not have to worry about him coming around the corner to shoot them or kill them, you know. So that was a beautiful thing. And plus I was able to drive myself to work. And I didn't have to worry about him being out there because we had a restraining order at the restaurant too. And so it was just a beautiful, beautiful moment for me because I was my own person again. Not that I had. Go ahead.
Yeah. How did you come to the moment of reckoning? Like, I am done. I am moving on. I am just, I'm not dealing with it anymore.
Are you talking about my ex-husband?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, definitely after I went through the attack, you know, I had to go through some psychiatrists and counselors and so forth like that. And that's where I started seeing myself getting my backbone back. You know, it was like, I am not going to let another man hurt me ever again. You know, so I'm starting to get my grit back. And it got to the point where even when I started getting back out socializing, which it took me a while, and the men in the bars where I was dancing like a Holiday Inn or something with my friend, they would come up to me and they would say, "Hey, you want to dance?" You know, I'd be like, "No, thank you." And then I remember one time that this guy just kept bugging me. So I hate to say this, but remember, this was before my Christian days, but I actually hit him and told him to get out of my face. so, yeah. So I was like, you're a man, stay away from me, you know?
Yeah.
But then after I started studying the Bible with some women and really trying to find that intimacy with God, everything changed. I became so much more of a confident woman. I was like, I am not going to allow any circumstances or anybody to ever affect me again. Nobody's going to steal my power back. And so when I went on my own journey, shortly after that, I took all my power back away from these people. And that's what I share with my clients. I'm going to get all that power back. You do not need to be walking around the face of this earth having somebody else have your power, because it's going to hold you back for the rest of your life.
I agree 100%. That is when true transformation happens when we step back into our power. So now tell us, or me, once you did that, what happened and how? I mean, for all of us who transform trauma into purpose, there is methods or methodologies, modalities that we use. Tell us about yours.
Well, when I've gone through my discovery journey, I ran across a book, and this is not the book, this is my book. But in the back of my book, I have a negative emotional chart. Okay. It's got over 130 words on it. So this was in this book called Will the Real Me Please Stand Up? And I had to circle everything that I felt negative about myself. And then I had to do a deep dive into each one of those words, thinking, okay, is this coming from somebody in my past or a circumstance, or is this actually coming from me? And it was so eye-opening. And this is what I use with my clients, because I want them to be able to remove those emotional triggers from their past, just like I did. And so as these emotional triggers were leaving me, my body, and my mind, that's when I started seeing that transformation. And Sherry, one day I'd wake up and I'm like, okay, are you the old Terri, or are you coming out to be the new Terri? And there was like a fight going on, because God was pulling me one way, Satan pulling me the other way. And I'm like, but then gradually, as I worked through this book and the homework, I could see the real Terri starting to merge. Excuse me. And I started loving her. Rather than hating her, I started to love her. And I started looking in the mirror going, who are you? You're smiling, you're glowing. And so at the end of the journey, I fell in love with the real Terri for the very first time. And it was beautiful. And I learned to forgive the people that hurt me. I learned to, raise my self-esteem. And then I went to church the next day, and people are coming up to me like, what's happening? They could see the glow on my face. They could see the light, the freedom that's been released. And one lady asked me if I had a facelift. I said, yeah, I did have a facelift, but it was with God, not me, not myself. They would start laughing. And but going through this transformation was such a beautiful thing. But here's the thing, Sherry, I didn't know me going through this transformation would help thousands and thousands of women and men today. My story is all over the world. I'm an national speaker. So it's all over the world. And I never thought me being the shy person that I was, would come out of her cocoon to be this beautiful butterfly that's had this full 100% transformation, you know? And so what I do with people that I'm on stages with or my clients, I say, you've got to leave the baggage at the bottom of the mountain in order to start climbing those ladders of success. And then when you get to the peak of the mountain, that's where you're going to start seeing yourself for the very first time. But then when you come down to the other side of the mountain, this is where everything's going to be gone from your past. You're never going to forget your past, but you can forgive your past. And so then what happens is down at the bottom of the mountain, that's where you don't need that help. You don't need that praise. You don't need that approval. All you want to do is serve. All you want to do is stand on stages and empower thousands and thousands of women and men. You want to be what God wants you to be, what God created you to be, that beautiful blueprint of success, not the broken down, full of resentment or bitterness or anger or hatred. So that's my transformation story right there. Now, honestly, obviously, I went on to do better things, and you can ask me those questions too.
Okay. Couldn't agree more about how it all happens, how we transmute trauma into living the magic on the other side. What I want to ask is, you have to identify all of the types of trauma that we've endured. It's not just conscious, it's heredity, it's past life, secondary, on and on. Do you help your clients identify the type of or multiple types of trauma and help them heal from that to move on?
Yes, that's a very good question. So once we remove those emotional triggers, okay, now let me back up a second, because they're going to do their homework with themselves, okay? But then within 10 minutes or 30 minutes of talking to someone for the very first time, I now have identified who's the culprit that's causing this problem, who's holding them back. It's 99, most of the time it's the father. Okay, there's father that didn't nurture, was absent, was in prison, alcoholic, whatever the case might be. So it could be the mom too. So then I have them do the same emotional chart, but then what I do is they have to tell me what kind of effect their parents still have over on them today. And it is so eye-opening. And this is where they start seeing the breakthroughs. This is where they start seeing the pieces of the puzzle coming together. And then my next step is I'm going to build their self-esteem up to 8 different areas. And so now when we get to the forgiveness stage, they're already feeling pretty good about themselves, right? And they're realizing that now they're starting to get their power back. But there's one more step that has to take place before you can get your power back. You have to forgive. You have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive others. And so when that we get to that module of my program, this is where I'm going to help. We're going to keep peeling those layers of that onion. Okay. So I'm going to do everything in my power to get that beautiful bulb to shine inside that onion. So all those layers of them peeling off this onion, that's their past. And they're seeing it. They're seeing it. And it's amazing because you can just see the spark in their eye coming back. You can see the sparkle. And so after I do all that, then we go into goals and dreams. And by that time, they are ready to leave my nest. And they are they've already had their complete transformation. So it's a beautiful thing. When I'm interviewed, a lot of times they're like, well, what is your ratio of people coming back to you once you release them? I can honestly tell you, I probably have a 5% ratio.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, part of your healing and sending them off. Are you helping them develop their intuitive abilities? And if yes, how are you identifying those for them?
Well, when they leave me, they already got their plan in action. They know exactly what they want to do. They know who they are. They know where they're going. They know that they have all their power back. And then after I graduate them, I mean, we stay friends. We stay friends. I'm always in communication with the majority of my clients. How are you doing? Do you need, and they know that they can call me at any time if they get stuck or they need some more help or they need to go on a maintenance plan or anything like that.
Do you use your intuitive abilities in your work?
I'm so sorry, Sherry, but I'm going to have to ask you to repeat that.
Yeah. Okay. So we all have intuitive abilities. Do you use yours in your work?
I absolutely do use my intuitive and my wisdom, because you can't just get on with a client and just, ab lib or just, you've got to really use your intuitive. And I'm very good at honing in on somebody's life quickly. And if somebody comes up to me and I go, how are you doing? And they say, I'm doing good. I'm like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Because something that's coming in my spirit, it's telling me that you're not doing good. So let's have a conversation, something like that. I do believe that God gives each and every one of us wisdom and intuition. And trust me, I lean on that more than my words coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know what that and talking with you. So, in what ways more than what you have shared are you using your intuition?
Yep. Because after I found who I truly was. And it was not more than probably 2007. I went to do a fundraiser through my company for a domestic violence organization. And my husband and I would normally have 50 to 60 people there at these fundraisers to raise money. And that night, something just didn't go right. And next thing I know, there's only 5 of us women sitting around the table. And I called my husband. I said, don't even come, because he would pick up the products and show the products and everything. I said, don't even come. And I said, I don't know what's happening, but we only have 5 people, and that's including myself and the pastor. And so I went to the restroom, and I was almost devastated, because I really wanted to raise money for this organization. But as I was in the restroom, I looked in the mirror and I said, my intuitive nature said, something is going down tonight. I just don't know what it is yet. I could feel it. And so I went out and I took, and the people that were there, they've already seen my presentation millions of times. Okay. Well, I'm exaggerating there. So the pastor is talking about domestic violence statistics, guns going off in children's ears by their bed and everything like that. And we are all sitting around that table, and we are all domestic violence survivors, okay, except for the pastor. And he says something that I'll never forget. He says, ladies, there's a need for an organization like us on the west side of Indianapolis. And I believe you ladies are being called to do this. And I'm looking at each one of them going, what did he just say? And then I'll never forget this. He puts his pencil in his mouth and he's rocking in this chair. And then he looks at me and he said, Terri, I just met you tonight, but I believe you're being called by God to lead this. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? And so I said, well, I've always wanted to open a pet shelter. And he says, well, the women need a shelter more than the pets right now. And so I could not sleep that night. I didn't know what was happening. And so the next day, all my friends were calling each other going, I don't know about you, but I couldn't sleep last night. They're like, yeah, I couldn't either. I said, okay. I said, God is doing something here, and we have to figure this out. So can you all meet in my living room tonight, and let's talk this out. And so we all got in my living room, and I told the ladies, I said, we have 2 choices here. We can obey God's calling, or we can reject it. Well, to make a long story short, along with some other courageous women, we opened a center in 2007. And it's still going strong today. I was their first executive director. I'm now, obviously I will stay the founder for the remainder of my life. But during that time, we got to serve over 5,000 women, children, and family pets. I did open a foster pet program, the first one ever in Indiana. So I was very, very humbled by that. We saved so many animals. We saved so many children, so many family women and children, and we even saved men because men are abused too. So I want to share with the audience right now, if you have a mess that I did, you need to turn that into your story. That needs to become your message. You need to be on stages. You need to be on podcasts. You need to write books. If you have a story that's so significant that that you can change somebody's life, that I'm going to really highly challenge you to do this. Because if somebody would have told me 14 years ago that I would be a speaker, I would be a coach, I would be a radio talk show host, I would be a best-selling author, I would now have a movie coming out about the 2 situations that I shared with my ex-husband and the sexual assault. I have a movie coming out next month. I would have told you that you're crazy because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe in myself, but other people did, and I had to go along with them because now I definitely see what they see. I'm now a courageous woman. I sparkle, and all I want to do is help other people to get where I'm at. And I'm not saying that in a prideful way. I'm saying that in a very humble way. And so now I'm writing my second book, and I'm now interviewing to be on cruise lines as their speakers, as their speaker. So I'm always moving fast. But you know what? There's a story to tell, and I want to be sharing it to the entire world. So
Wow, you say you and all of that. First off, unbelievable what you've been through, and then grows bother to get to where you are. I would love to get on stages, tell my story to help like you were globally. Also, young hello saying, what words would you impart on people who are struggling and not quite sure what's happening? They're probably in an abusive relationship or multiple relationships that, like you and me, dream of living beyond it.
beyond what? I'm sorry.
Yeah, living beyond it. What words do you impart on people, on victims who want to move beyond it to live the life that you and I have?
That's a great question. Great question. One thing that if I find let's go back to the domestic violence organization. If women came to me, because sometimes I was out of the office and major meetings all day long. One of the things if I was able to sit down with the victims, I would tell them this, that if you feel you are in danger and you cannot handle the situation anymore, get out. Get out now. Now, I had a lot of women come to me and they go, oh, well, I was going to leave him, but then he brought me roses and he said he's sorry for hitting me or strangling me or whatever the case might be. And I just look at them and say, my ex-husband did that to me and nearly almost cost me my life. So you get out, and I don't want to see your body being carried out in the body bag on TV. And so that would resonate with them. That would really spark them to think she is real. She is not joking around. And the other thing is too, if they are struggling, like right now, 1 in every 4 women are being abused in the United States. 1 in every 4 women. And it's rapid out there. You know, children are being abused, pets are being abused, men are being abused. So what we have to do in that kind of situation, we have to be overly aggressive with them. So something will rattle in their brain thinking, shoot, I need to leave this guy. And the women, unfortunately, that don't leave, they have a miserable life and they are not able to move forward. But I've had a lot of clients that have gotten out of those situations and now they're flourishing. You know, I have a former client in the domestic violence organization that she came to me and she was being totally abused by her father, sexually, mentally, everything. And we worked with her and she has written like 6 books now. She's on stages. She's my butterfly. If anybody I can ever think of, that's my butterfly. And
Okay. So, yeah, it's easy for us to say, get out, just walk out. But how do they do that? For me, I was in an abusive relationship with family around me, yet couldn't tell them what was happening. So we need to give a clear pathway to victims, women, men, children, to get out. How do they get out?
okay. Well, the first thing that we do is we help them come up with a action plan, and that we give them a list of things that they need to collect. And when they're ready to make that escape, then they have all the prescriptions. They have, pet bowls. They have the child's toys, everything. But what we tell them is hide it in the trunk, take it to a friend's house, but be ready when that magic moment happens where you can escape away from your abuser. The other thing is, like me, I was held hostage with my money, so I had to dig a hole in the backyard. Okay, I've had clients dig a hole in their front yard and put the money there. It's you gotta prepare them for their escape. But what I always told them is, when it's getting heated, that's when you need to call the police. You know, I always try to tell people, I know your love is strong for that man, but you do not deserve to be treated that way. He should not be hitting you. He should not put his hands around your throat. He should not be manipulating you or saying, bad things about you. And that's all you can do, Sherry. You can't wave that magic wand in front of them. That has to be their choice to leave.
Yeah, true. Right. So tell us more about your upcoming movie or short movie.
Yes. Well, I'm very excited about this because I always wanted to get my story out there.
Yeah.
And I was doing a networking meeting. I was a guest speaker, and there was a film producer on there. And she reached out to me and she said, I need you to talk with somebody in Greensville, South Carolina. And so I went, so we talked on it. I shared my whole complete story. And then she said, well, I need to go back and I need to talk to the screenwriter and our team and see if they'd be willing to even pick up this story. And so then the screenwriter wanted to interview me. And so then it just kept going and going. I constantly telling my story and looking over the screenwrite. And so then we went up in March. My husband and I, up today, at almost 31 years, we went up to Greensville, South Carolina, and we went and filmed the movie. And it was an all day, all night experience. My husband played the detective down at the police station. And so the woman that played me at age 27, she did a fantastic job. I'm not in the movie because I'm the old Terri, but I'm at the end of the movie. And so it was just phenomenal. I've never had any experience like that. And so as a result, this movie is now in the final editing process, and it will be shown at my church on August 23rd to a live audience for the very first time. And so I have a Hollywood movie premiere night. I've got the red carpet. I've got the red, gold, and black colors. I got a popcorn machine we're renting. I've got movie candy. A lot of my friends are making desserts. It's a dressy affair. And I have a professional photographer coming. And what I'm hoping for this movie is, and if anyone is a prayer warrior out there, please pray for this, because I want this movie to go all over the world. I want a film producer that's going to pick me up, that's going to invest in this movie, and I want it to go into a Netflix documentary. This story needs to be told from beginning to end, just like I shared with you for the last hour.
Yes.
So I'm very, very
excited. Okay, so the name of your movie is, and how can people watch it?
Okay, great question. So that once this movie is over with on the live premiere, then they're gonna put it on social media. So it'd be all over social media channels. It'd be on YouTube, probably Spotify, and different things like that. And so everybody needs to go on to Terri Moore Coaching Services Facebook group and like me, and then that will be where you're going to be able to find it. And the other thing is too, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, the movie is definitely, my goal for this movie is, I don't want women to think they're alone in their traumatic situations and their trauma. I want everyone to know that at any age in your life, you can still grow, you can still change, and you can still make peace with your past. And know that it's just a mindset change. Do I want to live in my past, or do I want to live in the present? Do I want to stay in this rut, or do I want to move forward and become something great? And so that's the beauty of this movie. And like I said, my vision for this movie is this movie needs to go all over the world.
Yes. Absolutely. Thank you. And before we end, what is your website address?
Sure. And also, if anybody is interested in purchasing my book, Face to Face with God, My Best Friend, this is a spiritual connection book. This is not a religious book. And you'll definitely, I guarantee that you'll grow closer with yourself and your relationship with God. It is on my website, but I'm just about ready to share. But so it is www.terri, Terri, Moore, coaching, coaching.com. So it's www.terrimorecoaching.com.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Transcending Trauma, the Spiritual Odyssey. If you're working to overcome trauma and would like to work with me or be a guest on my show, contact me through my website at shariroberts.org. Please hit the follow button to make sure you don't miss any episodes. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn at Shari Roberts. You can find all the links in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. I'm Shari Roberts, your host, reminding you that you're never alone. Until next time, sending you love and light.